They say revenge tastes best when it's cold, but in my case, it came with the roar of tow trucks at 3 a.m., dragging away every single car my HOA thought they could park on land that never belonged to them. It all started with the smell. If you've ever had fresh asphalt poured near your house, you know what I'm talking about, that sharp, chemical stench that seeps into your lungs. I opened my window one spring morning and froze. My long gravel driveway, the private road I had paid extra for, was black, shiny, and freshly paved. Fence posts? Knocked down. Survey markers? Gone. And to top it all off, a letter in my mailbox, $3,200 for road improvements, monthly HOA maintenance fees, threats of liens if I didn't pay. They had literally paved over my private road and declared it community property. Now here's what Vivian, the self-crowned queen of our HOA, didn't know. I wasn't some ordinary homeowner. I was a retired commercial developer, with more than a few connections in heavy equipment, towing, and land surveying. She thought she could bully me into submission. What she didn't realize was that she had just declared war on the wrong man. But before I get to the sweet part, the night her entire neighborhood woke up to find their cars vanished, I need to tell you how this nightmare started. 3 years earlier, my wife Elena and I had moved out here to the Texas Hill Country to escape city life. I'd sold my construction business, and we wanted peace, privacy, and space for our daughter Sophia to grow up without constant noise. We found a 3-acre property sitting just outside Willowbrook Commons subdivision. Here's the key detail. The house came with its own private road, separated from the HOA by legal deed. The seller, an old rancher named George Blackwood, made sure of that back in the 80s. He told me straight, "Son, never let busybodies own your front gate." I paid nearly $80,000 extra for that gravel road. And I considered it worth every penny. Life was peaceful, until she arrived. Her name was Vivian Ashworth, president of the Willowbrook Commons HOA. She drove a spotless BMW with vanity plates that read, Prop Ken, Property Queen. And she acted like it. Vivian wasn't content managing mailboxes and landscaping. She treated the HOA like her personal kingdom, enforcing rules with the zeal of a dictator. Wrong shade of beige on your shutters? Fine. Grass too tall? Fine. Bird feeder attracting, non-compliant wildlife? Another fine. Most folks were too tired to fight her. But me? I wasn't even under her authority. My land was outside HOA jurisdiction. My road was private. At least, it was supposed to be. One Tuesday morning, I heard heavy machinery outside. When I stepped out, I nearly lost it. A full crew was laying asphalt over my gravel driveway. And standing nearby, clipboard in hand, was the foreman. I asked what the hell they thought they were doing. He shrugged and showed me the work order, signed by none other than Vivian. At the entrance, they'd already put up stone pillars with brass plaques that read, Willowbrook Commons Grand Entrance, EST 2023. My private driveway had been turned into the neighborhood's shiny new entrance road, without my permission. And with that, the battle officially began. The day after they paved my road, I marched straight into the HOA office. Vivian sat behind her desk like some queen on a throne, her walls plastered with real estate awards. "Mr. Rockwell," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness, "we're simply upgrading your rustic little driveway." The way she said rustic, you'd think I'd been living in a mud hut. She slid a plot map across the desk, my driveway now labeled community thoroughfare. I told her point blank it was private property. She leaned back, smirked, and claimed the previous owner had given verbal permission to share the road. Verbal. From a man who'd been dead for years. The next morning, a certified letter showed up. $3,200 for road paving, $85 monthly HOA fees, landscaping requirements, with 30 days to comply, threat of liens if unpaid. They were treating me like one of their members. Elena was furious. Sophia? She woke up to find neighborhood kids skateboarding on the fresh asphalt right outside her window. Our home had turned into the subdivision's playground. But I wasn't going to roll over. I went to the county office and pulled permits. Guess how many Vivian had filed for her grand entrance? 0. Not one. Within 2 days, the county slapped a bright orange stop work order on her new stone pillars. Watching that paper flap in the wind was almost better than winning the lottery. Vivian struck back immediately. She held an emergency HOA meeting. My neighbor Marcus, a retired Marine, overheard the whole thing while walking his dog. According to him, Vivian ranted for nearly an hour, calling me a threat to community property values. By the end, the board voted to fine me $500 a day for failure to maintain common area. That's right, they were fining me for not maintaining my own private road. A few days later, a rent-a-cop in a golf cart actually stopped me on my driveway. Clipboard in hand, he asked to verify authorization to use the road on my land. I nearly laughed in his face. At that point, it was obvious. Vivian was trying to wear me down, to make it look like the HOA had always controlled the road. The longer they used it, the stronger their legal case for an easement would seem. But she underestimated me. I called in some old favors. First, a professional GPS land survey cost me $3,200, the exact number she tried to bill me. Second, a retired sheriff's deputy friend, Rex, who started digging into Vivian's background. And that's when the puzzle pieces came together. Vivian wasn't just being petty. She'd been buying up property around mine through shell companies. If she got control of my road, she could connect her new acquisitions and drive up the value. It wasn't about asphalt, it was about money and power. She thought she had me cornered. But she had no idea I had proof, old photos, invoices, and signed deeds, showing that road had always been private, blocked off every winter. Her community use claim didn't stand a chance. Still, she didn't quit. By the end of the month, I got another certified letter, this time from a big-name law firm threatening to sue me for $50,000 for destroying community property by reinstalling survey stakes. The absurdity was almost laughable. Suing me for marking my own land. That night, Elena found me in the garage surrounded by maps and legal papers. "You look like you're planning a war," she said quietly. I looked up at her and replied, "That's exactly what this is." And war was coming. Once Vivian realized the county had shut down her grand entrance, she doubled down. If she couldn't beat me legally, she'd try to break me socially. It started small, neighbors suddenly avoided us. Elena would wave while gardening, and folks who once stopped to chat would look the other way. Sophia overheard classmates whispering that we were being sued or that our house was going into foreclosure. The gossip machine was in full swing. Vivian called it community awareness. I called it slander. Next came the surveillance. I spotted unfamiliar cars idling at the end of my driveway. A man with a camera actually crouched behind the new stone pillars one morning, snapping pictures as I backed out. When I confronted him, he claimed he was documenting community assets. Community assets, on my land. Then utilities started acting up. Our water pressure dropped for 2 days straight. The electric company called to ask why the HOA had requested service consolidation at our address. I shut that down quick, but it was clear Vivian was using every trick in the book. One afternoon, I came home to find fresh spray paint across my fence, HOA equals authority. Elena was shaken. Sophia refused to walk the dog alone anymore. That's when I realized, this wasn't just intimidation. It was psychological warfare. But Vivian made one mistake, she assumed I was fighting alone. Remember Rex, the retired sheriff's deputy I hired? He'd been digging deep. Within 2 weeks, he uncovered a gold mine. Vivian wasn't just buying up property around me, she was funneling HOA funds into special projects that conveniently boosted the value of her own investments. She was using community money to build her empire. Meanwhile, the fines kept coming. Every week, a new certified letter. $500 a day for failure to maintain common area. Another $200 for unauthorized signage after I posted private road, no trespassing markers. They were trying to bury me under paper. But here's where things shifted. Rex discovered that Vivian's so-called road project was never approved by the HOA membership at large. She bypassed a community vote, pushed it through her board cronies, and filed fake minutes to cover her tracks. That was my opening. I gathered every survey, deed, and county record I had. I documented the harassment, photos of the graffiti, recordings of security guards blocking me, even screenshots of HOA emails neighbors slipped me anonymously. The case was building itself. And through it all, Vivian strutted around the neighborhood, smiling like she had already won. She didn't realize that the higher she climbed, the harder the fall would be when I finally pulled the rug out from under her. Because here's the truth, I wasn't just defending my road anymore. I was defending my family, my peace, and my right not to be bullied by a power-drunk HOA president. And Vivian had no idea what was coming next. By this point, Vivian thought she had me cornered. Fines stacking up, neighbors whispering, county offices dragging their feet, it looked like I was drowning. But what she didn't know was that every move she made only tightened the noose around her own neck. I had 2 advantages she couldn't see coming. First, decades of experience in commercial development. I knew zoning, permitting, and municipal law inside out. Second, I had a card up my sleeve she couldn't touch, my towing contracts. See, back when I ran my construction company, I learned fast that parking violations were a nightmare. Workers blocking access, trucks left overnight, customers angry. So, I signed long-term deals with every major tow company in the county. Even after I sold the business, those contracts stayed active under my name. All it took was one phone call. So, I waited. Vivian's supporters loved using my new road. They parked along it for block parties, left their cars overnight, even staged a community jog where half the runners parked SUVs right on my property. Every vehicle was evidence. Every bumper sticker was proof that the HOA had no respect for private land. At 3 a.m. sharp, the cavalry arrived. 6 tow trucks rolled in, engines humming low, lights off. One by one, they hooked every car lining my driveway. BMWs, Lexuses, pickup trucks with "Proud HOA Member" decals, all of them lifted off my asphalt and hauled away into the night. The operation was surgical, quiet, almost beautiful. By dawn, the road was spotless. Every single car belonging to Vivian's little army had vanished. The neighborhood woke up to panic. Phones lit up. Voices echoed through the subdivision. "Where's my car? Who called the tow company? This is theft." Vivian stormed down the street in her bathrobe, barking orders like a general whose army had deserted. She pounded on my gate, screaming that I had committed a crime. I calmly held up my deed. Private property. Unauthorized vehicles. Legal tow. Her face turned the color of overripe tomatoes. But that was only step 1. Step 2 was documentation. Every impounded vehicle had been photographed, logged, and filed with my attorney. The towing receipts listed trespassing as the cause. When Vivian tried to claim harassment, I produced a stack of evidence showing repeated violations, ignored warnings, and official county records proving the road belonged solely to me. It was checkmate, and she didn't even realize it yet. The fallout was immediate. Neighbors who once worshipped Vivian turned on her the moment they had to pay hundreds in tow fees. Parents missed work because their minivans were locked up at the impound lot. One guy nearly lost his job because his work truck was gone. And guess who they blamed? Not me. Vivian. By the end of the week, whispers about her mismanagement spread faster than wildfire. Board members who'd been loyal started avoiding her. One even apologized to Elena in the grocery store, muttering that things had gone too far. But Vivian, true to form, doubled down again. She called an emergency meeting at the clubhouse and tried to rally support by accusing me of terrorizing the community. I didn't even bother showing up. Instead, Marcus, my retired Marine neighbor, happened to stroll by with his dog. He told me later it was a disaster. Half the room shouted at Vivian for letting their cars get towed. The other half wanted to know where the HOA money was going. That night, for the first time in months, Elena laughed. A real, belly-deep laugh. She clinked her wine glass against mine and said, "You might have actually out-crazied her." But I wasn't celebrating yet. Tow trucks were just the opening move. Because while Vivian scrambled to save her reputation, Rex and I were about to drop the kind of evidence that doesn't just end a property dispute, it ends careers. Vivian thought the towed cars would break me, that the neighbors would rise up with pitchforks and demand I surrender. Instead, it broke her. Overnight, she went from queen bee to community liability. But I knew she wouldn't stop. People like Vivian never stop. Power isn't enough, they want absolute control. And that's exactly what made her sloppy. Rex, my private investigator, had been tracing every shell company linked to Vivian. What he found turned my property dispute into a crime drama. 6 LLCs, all registered under different names, but every one traced back to her office address. They'd been quietly buying land around mine, borrowing money against future HOA dues. That's right, she was using homeowners' fees as collateral for private development loans. Her empire was built on quicksand. Even worse, she was broke. Rex uncovered bank records showing she owed $340,000 in unpaid debts. Credit cards maxed out. Mortgage payments overdue. The HOA wasn't her crown, it was her lifeline. If she couldn't force me into the association, her whole financial house of cards would collapse. And collapse it did. The first crack appeared at the next county hearing. Vivian marched in with her usual army of supporters, waving charts and community growth proposals. I waited until she finished her performance, then slid a folder across the table. Inside? Deeds. Surveys. County records. And George Blackwood's original 1987 clause stating that my road was forever exempt from HOA control. In perpetuity. The commissioners went silent. Vivian tried to spin it, claiming verbal agreements and community expectations, but it was too late. The words were there in black and white, notarized and filed 30 years before she even moved in. But I wasn't finished. Rex and I delivered the next blow, a dossier of her shell company schemes. Property purchases. Shady loans. HOA money funneled into her personal accounts. I watched her attorney's face turn pale as he flipped through the evidence. He knew what it meant. Fraud. Embezzlement. Federal crimes. For the first time since this nightmare started, Vivian had no words. Just silence. The county shut down her petition on the spot. My road was declared private property beyond dispute. And the commissioners, suddenly eager to distance themselves, promised a review of Willowbrook Commons HOA practices. Translation: Vivian's empire was crumbling. But the best part? The neighbors turned on her completely. The same people who once whispered about me were now demanding to know why their fees were funding a personal land grab. Social media lit up with angry posts. Where's our money? Why are we paying for Vivian's schemes? I want answers. Even her board started to fracture. 2 members resigned within a week, citing ethical concerns. One neighbor, Janet, the schoolteacher, organized a petition to remove her as president. Within days, half the subdivision had signed. It was like watching a dam burst. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet. I didn't need to gloat. I just sat on my porch with Elena, sipping coffee while the sound of crickets replaced months of chaos. For once, peace had returned to our land. But deep down, I knew Vivian wasn't finished yet. People like her don't go quietly. She was desperate, cornered, and running out of options. And desperate people? They make the dumbest mistakes of all. And that mistake was coming sooner than she realized. Vivian was cornered, and everyone knew it. The county had sided with me, the board was turning against her, and neighbors were demanding answers about their money. But people like Vivian don't quit gracefully, they go down swinging. Her last gamble came in the form of a glossy letter slipped into every mailbox in Willowbrook Commons. It was titled, "Protecting Our Community from Hostile Neighbors." Inside, she painted me as some kind of outlaw, a rogue property owner, who was endangering schoolchildren and undermining community safety. She even claimed my tow truck operation was illegal, warning that homeowners could be next. It was desperate. And it backfired immediately. Within hours, neighbors were flooding the HOA office demanding to see the books. A dozen homeowners showed up at my gate apologizing for ever siding with her. One man actually said, "We thought you were the problem, but it's clear now, we were living under a dictator." But Vivian wasn't finished. 3 days later, I received notice of a lawsuit filed in county court. She was suing me for $50,000 in damages to community property. According to her claim, my private survey markers and aggressive signage had caused irreparable harm to community morale. Community morale. I almost laughed. But instead of panicking, I smiled. Because this was the trap I'd been waiting for. My attorney filed a countersuit the very same week, this time in federal court. The charges? Property destruction, harassment, fraud, and violation of the RICO Act. Thanks to Rex's evidence, her shell companies, embezzlement, permit fraud, and even her brother-in-law's shady contracts, we had a case airtight enough to make any prosecutor salivate. And then came the finishing blow. Remember those environmental violations? The unauthorized roadwork had destroyed a protected drainage area. My attorney forwarded the evidence straight to the EPA. 2 weeks later, federal inspectors were on site. Bright orange violation notices plastered across her precious stone entrance pillars. $37,500 fines per day until remediation. It was checkmate. Vivian tried to rally her remaining allies, but nobody showed up. Even her loyal security guard abandoned post after 2 paychecks bounced. The HOA board voted her out unanimously in a stormy Friday night meeting. By Saturday morning, she was gone, BMW packed, house listed for sale, her empire reduced to a foreclosure notice. The neighborhood? It changed overnight. The tension vanished with her. Kids rode bikes again. Neighbors actually waved at each other instead of whispering. Elena could shop without being cornered, and Sophia finally opened her curtains again. The air itself felt lighter. And me? I got my peace back. My road, my private road, remained exactly what I'd paid for, mine. No fees. No fines. No HOA hands in my pocket. Just gravel crunching under tires, leading to the home I'd built for my family. But more than that, I'd proven something bigger. Bullies, no matter how powerful they seem, always collapse when you stand your ground and shine light on their corruption. Vivian had money, lawyers, influence, and even crooked officials in her pocket. But in the end? Truth, persistence, and a little creativity with tow trucks brought her down. Sometimes, revenge really is best served cold. And sometimes, it's best served at 3 a.m., with a fleet of tow trucks.